On today's show, we're going to look at the fallout from the NBA trade deadline, including why were there so many what I would call small trades. We're going to look at the Anthony Davis trade from both sides for Washington as well as for Dallas. And then tanking. Is that going to be the story in the NBA for the next couple months? I think it might be. This is All NBA Show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague who's been the busiest man in sports media over the last week, but finally catching his breath ahead of the Super Bowl. It's Mark Stein. Mark, how are you doing? Are you in good spirits? Are you exhausted? What is
Adam Mares, I just watched my beloved Manchester City come back from 1-0 down to win 2-1 at Liverpool. That was my Super Bowl. I will not be watching one single down from tonight's activities, but I am good. I am fine. I appreciate the words of concern, my friend. But hey, man, what I always say is this was my 33rd trade deadline. And the interest we should ask producer Atticus to just instead of one of his typically fancy graphics, just put an arrow pointing up, because the interest in the trade deadline has only gone in one direction since I've been covering this league. And people love this time of year. And I think you'll notice the NBA also relishes its position as, the hot stove. Baseball was always the hot stove league because wintertime and, the old legend of gathering around the hot stove to talk about your team. But in wintertime, it is the NBA that makes the transactional chaos happen. And the NBA itself tweeted out a record 28 trades involving a record 73 players.
Wow.
In the last 7 days of trade season. So the NBA, like I said, does not mind being associated with the frenetic pace of another NBA trade deadline in the books.
And yet I feel like it was, in a weird way, I would classify
I knew you were going to say that, man. Why? Why do you always do that? Adam Mares, Adam Mares, let me tell you something. Yes, there were several trades that were small, and that were motivated by bookkeeping,
salary dumps,
luxury tax avoidance, and management. It's always part of it. That is how we get to 28 trades, and that is how we get to 73 players being moved. I'm giving you a hard time, but you are not wrong. However, we did see James Harden, Darius Garland, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Anthony Davis all moved over a space of 3 days. Yeah. That's not nothing.
It's not nothing. My point is more, it feels like the moves that were made were more about the future. And there wasn't that much that, if you narrow the league down to this season, how many teams have a chance? Let's say 10 teams. Those 10 teams were not very active in meaningful ways. The moves seem to be mostly teams that are building towards the future. And that's just what I'm getting at. And maybe that's, it's been that way more often than I remember. But when we get to the trade deadline, a lot of the conversation is a lot about this team, can they go all in and get over the hump with this or that? And I just felt like there were fewer of those and much more moves with the Jazz and the Bulls and, teams that are building towards the future. That's all I mean. But it's interesting nonetheless. Before we get there, though, can I take you to, I always ask you what people are talking about around the league. And when we prepped for the show, you said what people are talking about is something that I think really starts in earnest this week, and that is tanking. Because a lot of the teams at the bottom made moves that seem to signal either they are going to tank or they're going to have to tank because they added talent to their roster that might help them too much in the next 2 months.
It is most definitely what everyone is talking about. That Utah game last night got everybody
crazy
talking. I was hopeful that we would be talking about this after All-Star weekend next weekend, but I was wrong. It didn't even make it. It didn't even make it till, 48 hours after the trade deadline. I got to call up Tankathon here because I try to reel off all these teams off the top of my head, and I can't do it without looking at the list. Right now, in today's NBA, Sacramento, Indiana, Washington, Brooklyn, Utah, Dallas, Memphis, Milwaukee, Chicago, all of those teams are highly incentivized to lose. What happened last night, the Jazz were winning a game. Markkanen and Triple J were putting up numbers.
Looked good.
Didn't play in the fourth quarter. And it's so like Adam Silver, next weekend, Adam Silver will be doing a press conference at All-Star Weekend. And I'm already wondering how many questions about tanking and the lottery is he going to get? Because there's no easy fix for this. And this sport, unlike any other, when you win the draft, when you do well in the draft, when you have a draft like all the draft experts, what they're predicting for this draft class, it's not just the top 3. I mean, the feel is in this draft, you can get a good player at 5 or 6, really a difference maker. And that's why it's so valuable in the NBA to get a difference maker like that teams will put up with all the criticism they're going to get about tanking, because it changes the direction of your franchise. And the league knows this has to be addressed. They've tried to address it. They've flattened the lottery odds. And on some levels, the flattened lottery odds have worked. I mean, the last 2 lotteries were won by the teams with the 10th and 11th the 10th and 11th worst records in the league. The team with the worst record in the league has fallen to number 5 in the lottery 3 times, I think, out of the last 4 lotteries. So on those levels, the flattened lottery odds are working, but it's not enough. And so many teams out there are still saying, we're going to tank anyway. We don't care about the consequences. We don't care about the criticism. We don't care if we get the worst record and we take the risk of slipping to 5. It is just so tantalizing for teams to try to do well in the lottery that I don't know what can divert them off that path.
I mean, honestly, nothing can. And we have a super chat here. Usually we save them for the end, but it's a question I would ask.
Throw it in.
Can the NBA start taking away ping pong balls for teams obviously tanking since fines do nothing? And here's the thing. You just said the consequences. They don't care about the consequences. Well, that's because there really aren't any. And here's the thing, Mark. I think it's hard for the league to do anything, because how do you really quantify who's tanking and who's not? And yet, when you do nothing, you get situations like you got last night with Utah, where they just clearly don't play their best players as they slowly lose a lead. That's obviously tanking. So is there anything, does the league, do you think there are discussions about how do we get in front of this?
Yes, the discussions are active as we speak. And again, Adam Silver is going to be holding his his annual All-Star press conference, and he's going to get questions about it. Multiple questions, I would imagine. And look, one of the things they're talking about is to do away with pick protections. There's a belief that taking pick protections out of these, taking that out of the equation would limit the tanking. And my retort to that is there is a potential unintended consequence there, that if you take away pick protections, you might reduce the volume of trades. Look at the trade we just saw. Thursday's wildest
My
trade.
favorite one.
The deadline, the deadline day shocker of the Clippers trading Zubac to Indiana. What are the pick protections there? 1-4 and 11-30. And they put 2 levels of pick protections into that deal. And so if pick protections aren't allowed, maybe that trade doesn't happen.
For sure.
And again, I think the NBA does relish its standing as the league known for the most trade activity, because it drives so much interest. So I don't know that the pick protection move is going to solve as much as they hope, or does it create some new issues? And that's the thing. The league knows this is an issue. It knows tanking is a problem. I promise you, in the league office, they know that these next 2 months or the last 6 to 8 weeks of the season is going to be very uncomfortable. because we're going to be talking, I jokingly like to say draft positioning prioritization mode. That's what I call it in writing when I don't have to string those 4 words together on a podcast. It's tanking.
Yeah, it's tanking.
And they know that Washington and Utah just took the 2 biggest swings of this trade deadline, but both of those teams have a top 8 protected pick in this coming June's draft that they have to protect. So even though they both made these big swings, they need to lose for the rest of the season. That is just fact.
Yeah.
The Wizards and the Jazz do not, remember the way the lottery works, the only way you can ensure that you are in the top 8 is to have one of the 4 worst records. And as we speak, I'm going to have to consult Tankathon again. But as we speak, Washington has the 4th worst record after getting absolutely drilled last night by Brooklyn, which has been getting drilled by everybody else. And the Jazz have the 6th worst record.
Yeah.
That means the Jazz very easily could fall out of the top 8 and their pick goes to Oklahoma City. If Washington falls out of the top 8, their pick goes to New York. So these 2 teams, that's what made this trade deadline. A lot of people were coming away saying, this was such a bizarre trade deadline. It's so weird. And the reason it's weird is because the teams taking the biggest swings aren't even trying to win right now.
Correct.
Indiana's in the same position.
Yep.
They got Zubac for next season, not for now.
Yeah.
So this is a thing, man. This is a thing we are going to be talking about ad nauseum till the playoffs start.
And I think it's going to get ugly. And there was a comment here in the chat from Marla that says there's no way to quantify it except for when you watch a team tank. It's it's very clear. No, what I'm saying is you can stealth tank if that's what's required. If the league got really strict about this, it's very easy for a player to have a hamstring strain. Because how do you say a player has to play through something like that? It's easy to do it. But the fact that there's no oversight to it, teams are just doing it out in the obvious. And that's what I'm saying is there's nothing you can do about it. But because nothing's done about it, we get situations like we're getting right now where it's so clear how many teams are tanking. And Mark, last thing, and then we can move on from this topic, but I honestly wonder how bad it's going to get because it's pretty bad right now in terms of just obvious tankings. But when you mention all those teams that are basically tied in the standings, down the stretch, I fear we are going to see some of the worst examples of 2 teams trying to out-tank each other in a single game that we've seen in the last decade.
No, I don't remember the exact 4 opponents, but Kevin Gray, our host on DLS Mavs, he tweeted out last night about how the Mavs are entering into a stretch where they're playing at the end of this month, the Mavs will play 4 other teams in the exact same position they're in. I think Memphis is in there, Indiana's in there, Brooklyn's in there again. So it's like, what's going to happen when these teams that are all trying to lose are playing each other? I mean, those are going to be some unsightly games. But here's another thing, though. Like, you don't want to overreact to just a 1-year situation because this draft, everyone is so excited about.
That's true.
Because the talent at the top of this draft is so good. I don't think we're going to see that level of tanking I don't think it's going to be like that in, next season's draft is not thought of in the same way. So, like, you also, when you're making rules change and stuff, you don't want to overreact to, a 1-year situation. But remember, when the league came out with all that stuff about, in the midst of these gambling probes and the various things that the league wants to look at, yeah, I mean, it knows that tanking is an issue because, there's just so many layers to it. And again, you always ask me, what are people talking about?
They're talking about it.
And this is as big as this trade deadline was and all the ins and outs of the various trades and moves. Like, this is what a lot of people have on their mind.
I think the other thing about this year that's unique is there's 4 players that I think teams would be happy to make their cornerstone guy. Usually it's 1 or 2, and then there's a drop-off. So if you're the 6th worst team, you're looking at that saying, what are the odds we get the number 1 pick? It's low. But right now, if you get 1, 2, 3, or 4, I think you're happy. And so there's more opportunity, more teams that'll probably tank. All right, let's go back to our main topic here, which is last time we spoke, which was just on Tuesday. There was 1 trade. We were breaking it down. And now we go all the way up to 30 or 28, as you say. There's all these different trades. yes, they were different personality. Do you think it's a sign? I always wonder what the trends are. Do you think this deadline is, while feels somewhat atypical, is actually this is where the new CBA is leading the deadline? Moves of this nature where tanking teams or bad teams are setting themselves up for the future more than contenders going all in right now.
And I realize now my math led you somewhat astray. I thought we had not talked since the previous weekend. So you're right. We did. I already forgot. Yeah. I already forgot that we did do Tuesday's show, and we had
a couple.
We were at 3 over the weekend.
Yeah.
We were at like 3 or 4 trades entering.
Well, right when we got done. Remember, right when we got done, like 5 trades came through.
Yes. So we were around 4.
Yeah.
But we ended up with 29 when you add in the Trae Young trade. And look, I think the trend line that you're looking for here is free agency is more and more and more being pushed into a corner where it is the least anticipated window for teams to make moves happen. Because already we've seen for several seasons now, multiple years, 2, 3, 4, maybe even longer, we've seen that players want extensions. The best players in this league do not even want to mess with free agency. They want extensions before they have to mess with the open market. And that was a big element of the James Harden, Darius Garland move. James Harden did have a 2-year deal worth more than $80 million signed with the Clippers last summer, but year 2 was a player option, and James Harden was very well aware that he could have picked up that player option by the June 29th deadline. The Clippers had until July 11th to say, we're letting you go. We're taking your salary down from $42 million to $13 million, and we're just going to waive you. That was a possibility. Only 13 of the $42 million on James Harden's contract for next season was guaranteed. And that's why James Harden wanted to go to Cleveland to not only join up with a team that is in the championship mix. The Clippers are not in the championship mix. But not only that, the belief is that in Cleveland, he's going to get an extension, a new 2-year deal. And that's just symptomatic of, it's just a great example of everything is done now with an eye to the future. The Pacers, they traded for Zubac for next season for Halliburton's comeback. The Wizards and the Jazz, 2 teams that were projected to have tons of cap space, but they know realistically neither is a trade destination. So those 2 teams made trades to use their cap space now. It's players, it's teams, everywhere you want to look. We're seeing, especially the last, the aprons era, the luxury tax aprons were supposed to make it harder to make any kind of moves. This was the 3rd trade deadline of the aprons era. We're up to 81 trades over the last 3 trade deadlines. So the last 3 in-season trade windows, we've averaged 27 deals. And yes, you are absolutely right. A lot of them are small, and a lot of them have a focus of getting the books in order, getting away from a certain luxury tax apron, getting the luxury tax bill down, accounting, financing. Yes, that all factors in. But we also saw some significant deals and multiple teams make moves to change the direction of where they're going.
So do you think this will affect restricted free agency? And I'm obviously asking this selfishly because, Denver has Peyton Watson, who's, his restricted free agency will be very interesting.
I think you remember how restricted free agency went last summer.
Guys.
Restricted free agency has always been brutal for restricted free agents.
Yep.
But now, like last summer, literally 4 players waited all summer to learn their fates. Kuminga, Cam Thomas, Josh Giddey, Quentin Grimes. Now, this summer, might it be different? I suppose, does Peyton Watson's situation get resolved faster? You'd like to think so. But yeah, like I said, teams don't want to wait till July 1 to know what next season looks like. They want to make their trades now. They want to make their trades at the latest by the draft. They want to make the big swings. So many big swings are being taken now before July 1st.
Yeah. Well, that one will be interesting to follow too. There's just not a lot of teams or players for that free agency period. But again, as you mentioned, it still opens itself up to trades. Is there anything else that's interesting about this one before we get into some of the specifics, including the Anthony Davis trade? Is there any other just like big thematic things about this trade deadline that you want to discuss?
I mean, I think we've covered a lot. I mean, they're like I said, just the way it was. Nobody expected Utah and Washington to take those kind of swings now.
Yeah.
But like, especially because of their pick protection situation. But the Jazz to me it is super interesting because all the signals are that they will match any offer in restricted free agency for Walker Kessler. There's another player who, what is his restricted free agency going to look like? Is it going to move quickly?
Yeah.
Or is it going to drag out? The Pacers have been trying to get Kessler for ages. They ultimately pivoted to Zubac because Utah just wanted no part of it. Washington was said to be a team that was going to put a big offer in for Kessler. And obviously now they've gone in a different direction. But let's imagine that Utah does retain Walker Kessler. What a jumbo-sized front line that is going to be. Lauri Markkanen's your 3-man.
It's going to work too. I'm telling you, they had this working at the start of the year.
Lauri Markkanen are they just going to play two of them at all times and not have the
no
three
way.
of them
They
together?
did this at the beginning of the year where they played Filipowski at the 4, Markkanen at the 3, and it worked. And really, Jaren Jackson Jr. is just way better at that role. And then on top of that, if you do luck out in the draft and you get a DeBance or a Peterson, I mean, you have a very exciting future. So I get it for Utah, man. I totally get it. It'll be interesting. We'll have
So
to
you
let it
liked
play
it?
out. I liked it and love. Like, I don't know if it's a championship, but I just look at it and say they're going to be really good next year. The West, somebody has to get bad in the West next year. If we keep adding good teams and good players to the West, somebody.
Well,
has to
I think another element of this, and we can get into it some when we talk more about AD, but the Wizards haven't been in the playoffs since 2021, and the Jazz have been, they traded Gobert. They traded Gobert and Mitchell in the summer of 2022. These are long, painful waits for teams. Yeah. They get tired of it. They don't want to wait around. They're sick of losing. The Jazz are sick of losing. They want to contend. They want to compete.
Yeah, that's 100% it. Sometimes the lottery gods bring you Victor Wembanyama. Sometimes they bring you Ace Bailey, a good player, but somebody that you say, okay, you know what? We're done waiting on this.
I mean, they fell from 1 to 5, worst record in the league.
Yep.
They fell from 1 to 5. And so the NBA would say, see, flattened lottery odds are working. The Jazz tanked. They got the worst record in the league.
And now they're not tanking anymore.
And they were not rewarded, and they fell all the way to 5. And a year later, nobody remembers that. And you got all these teams that are just like, oh my, Boozer, DeBanza, Peterson, Wilson, Flemings, we're tanking.
Yeah.
They can't help it.
They can't help themselves, man. All right, why don't we take our one and only break here? Because on the other side, I do want to get your thoughts. You're close obviously to Dallas. I want to get your thoughts on the Dallas perspective of that trade and anything else to tie a bow on the trade deadline. We'll do that on the other side. But first, fast breaks, buzzer beaters, block parties are back, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all of the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite player will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. I put one together for today's game. Let me see if I could find it here. I have, we got the new trade one here with Ayo Dosunmu. So we got Minnesota and the Clippers. I think Anthony Edwards is going to ball out today. 28.5 points, higher. Ayo Dosunmu making his debut for the team, 9.5 points. I actually went lower, probably ease him into this into his new place. Not till after the All-Star break he goes off. But Kawhi Leonard, 4.5 assists. I went lower on that one as well. So there you go. See if you agree with me or not. Download the app today. Use promo code ALLNBA to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code ALLNBA. Underdog. Make picks. Win money. Must be 18 plus. 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska. 19 plus in Colorado for some games. 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia. And present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. Also want to tell you guys about Shady Rays. You guys know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite pair of sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, at a gas station 3 states away? I've been there too, but then I found Shady Rays, and they changed the game. Sunglasses that are made for real life, seriously good-looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. And here's the wild part. If you lose or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So now you can wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on a boat, wherever. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code AC35 for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All NBA show, me and Mark Stein. To wrap this up, you're covering the Dallas Mavericks out there with DLLS. They made the big trade. Let's start. I want to get both sides of this, but let's just start with Dallas. I know a lot of the complaints was this the best we could have done? But at the same time, it is a clean slate. It does feel like a new era officially gets to get started here after the deadline in Dallas. So what are people talking about with regards to the trade on Dallas' side?
Well, look, it's been very well received locally, exactly for the reasons you described. There are a lot of Mavs fans who it has been just a year that still there are no words for it. Last weekend was the 1-year anniversary of the Luka Doncic trade. And because the Mavs did this now in the manner that they've done it, by shedding so much salary, it has been applauded by a large segment of their fans because they don't want to be reminded about that trade. And Anthony Davis's exit means they won't be reminded about it as flatly, as strongly, as just, in the face as, Anthony Davis being on the roster but not playing or rehabbing an injury or whatever the case is. Now, the only way to judge if it was the right call for the Mavericks will be what they do with this flexibility. The best part of the trade, or maybe not, one of the best elements of the trade for them is they were able to shed D'Angelo Russell's contract and Jaden Hardy's contract and just get, they were a second apron team and now they're all the way under and have all this newfound flexibility. So from that perspective, they felt like they couldn't resist it, that this opportunity was too good. The problem is they really only got back one first-round pick, which is going to be number 29 or 30 in this draft via Oklahoma City. The other first they got is probably going to convert to second-round draft compensation. They didn't get any players in this trade who are, at this point, who appear to be or who look like they will be part of the future. So you really just traded away Anthony Davis for financial flexibility. And the question will linger, if you had waited till the offseason, were there other options? Could they have shed the tax in the offseason by trading Klay Thompson and Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, who will be trade eligible after the season? Could they have gone that route and gotten more and still created the flexibility they seek? But they would have had to wait it. They would have had to wait for that. And that would have been an unknown that hangs over the team for another 3 or 4 months because they couldn't be sure. And so they decided to take the sure thing. This was the sure thing. But when you really look at it, flexibility is all they got here.
That's it.
So
yeah,
they are going to have to turn that flexibility into players that help Cooper Flag, because we've been talking about this all season long. They need to make decisions based on what is best for Cooper Flag. And so they decided, they determined that getting the flexibility now is the best course to making Cooper Flag's supporting cast better. And again, to look at it from any other perspective, it's what ifs that can't be answered.
right.
But, could they have kept Anthony Davis till May or June, made a trade around the draft that brought more help to Cooper Flag?
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it is tough to say. What do you think? Do you think they would have gotten more in the summer?
I think they would have had the optionality to make other moves, not necessarily one with Anthony Davis, to create. I guess what I would say is I don't think this was the only path to flexibility. It was the only path to instant flexibility. At this deadline, this was the best option. You could make this move. You know you have flexibility. You know you can tell your fans the reset has begun, but there is still a lot of work to do. And we just don't know. We don't know if in the offseason could they have gotten more, because again, in terms of draft capital and players back in this deal, they got very, very little back. But they can't think about that now. They have to press forward. They have to try to turn the page. And they need to hit on number 30. You know, there have been some very good players taken at number 30. Desmond Bane is the most recent example. But realistically, it's hard to hit at 29 or 30. The Mavs have a late round success of their own in Josh Howard. They drafted Jalen Brunson in the second round.
Yeah.
So it's not impossible, but they really need to do something with that pick.
Yeah.
And they need to use the flexibility they have now to get difference-making players.
I hate to put you on the spot with this one, but
no, you don't. No, you don't.
I enjoy to put you on the spot for this one. But what does this mean for Kyrie? I mean, obviously he's been out for the year, but you know, do you think that they want to build around him? Is that still up in the air? Like, how do you think that plays out?
Well, it's amazing to think about this, that Kyrie and Anthony Davis only played together in one game for 25 minutes.
It's insane, actually.
You barely got to see the two of them play. They haven't seen what Kyrie looks like next to Cooper Flagg for 1 second yet. Yeah. And so I think, again, in the ideal world, the Mavs would like to know what that looks like. But I think, look, they have a good relationship with Kyrie Irving. It's good dialogue. It's collaborative. I think they're going to talk to him too first of all, the first question is going to be, does he play again this season? And on one hand, as we've covered already, the Mavs need to lose. So Kyrie playing from that perspective makes no sense.
Right.
He should take the rest of the season off. But on the flip side, come early March, he will have been out a year. If he doesn't play at all this season, does he want to sit out until October and now your absence is 19, 20 months? Now, I believe Jamal Murray did it that way, and it worked out very well. But I think you have to work with the player there too and ask Kyrie, are you more comfortable not playing this whole season and your comeback isn't until October? I think that's one element to it. But in the big picture, I think also they have to have frank dialogue with Kyrie and say, listen, we are a very young team now. We are building around a 19-year-old. He is our universe. Do you want to be a part of this when we might not be a contender for X amount of time? And I think they're going to have those conversations with Kyrie and give him some say in this, or at least take his temperature on it to see how he feels. But I also feel this way too. The Mavs phone will ring for Kyrie Irving in May and June, whether they want to trade him or not.
Yeah, that's true.
Someone in the playoffs is going to fall short of what they were hoping for and say, you know what? Let's see if the Mavs are willing to trade Kyrie now that they've moved off Anthony Davis. So I think the interest is going to come their way, whether they want it or not.
What about the other side of this? You know, real quickly here with Washington,
Yeah.
It's kind of bizarre what they've done, in my opinion, too, adding Trae Young and Anthony Davis. But what is the motivation there, and what do you hear on that side?
So the rumbles have been that, you know, they have been ultra, ultra, ultra patient and slow since deconstructing their roster, as they like to put it. But then they made the Trae Young trade. So that was like, okay, they seized on an opportunity. Trae Young, the price point was so favorable. Just 2 team-friendly contracts, no draft compensation, and you can swipe Trae Young from Atlanta. Why not try it? But to do this now, I mean, they've now gotten 2 win-now players. You know, Trae Young's, I think, 27, AD's obviously in his early 30s, to put next to Alex Sarr. So again, the price point for AD was so minimal. They didn't trade any of their own homegrown recent draftees. They traded a bunch of expiring money, most notably Chris Middleton's expiring deal. They traded picks that aren't even theirs. So they gave up very little. But as with Trae Young, does AD want to be there? Is he going to be willing to sign a contract extension there? Do the Wizards legitimately look at Young and AD with Sarr as their star trio going forward? How much are we even going to, like Chris Haynes, my colleague, my longtime friend and colleague, Chris Haynes reported on Friday night, AD is not expected to play for the Wizards this season. Now, Trae Young, Will Dawkins, the Wizards GM, has said that Trae Young will play some.
Oh, wow.
But remember, the Wizards are just like the Jazz. They have a top 8 protected pick. The Wizards need to lose and secure one of the league's four worst records to ensure that they don't lose their draft pick and have to send it to New York. So the rest of this season, the Wizards aren't trying to win. Draft positioning prioritization mode for sure in the nation's capital. And so these Wizards questions, I don't think we're going to even start getting answers until next season.
I think the Jazz and Wizards are going to be the number 1 and number 2 tankers over this final stretch. I think both of those two teams are the ones that you're going to see go the hardest in their tanking strategies. Any final thoughts here before we wrap up, Mark?
You think the league office is going to watch this and yell at us for talking so much about tanking?
I hope not, man. I mean, look, we love it. Same with legs, man. We love the league. We don't like talking about these types of things. We want the league to be good.
Actually, I need to do a show with you guys because I've never really had the chance to talk about this stuff with legs. I kind of want to hear. I'm sure there's outrage.
He keeps himself in check, I'll be honest. But yes, as fans of the game, the actual games, we just want to see competitive basketball. That does it.
Last thing. This is a personal plea. Like I told you, I'm not watching the game tonight, but I really need the Seahawks to win. I cannot have a team from my Bills division win this Super Bowl. I cannot deal with Bill Simmons if the Patriots win this game tonight. So I'm not going to be watching, but I need the Seahawks to get it done because, this is a Josh Allen household over here, man.
Well, there you go. I have no dog in the fight either. I hope they both lose, man. My poor Broncos came up just a little shy. Everybody,
are you watching it though? Are you watching?
Not even watching it. Not even going to be watching today. True hoops only. Everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Me and Legs are back tomorrow. We'll see you guys then.